welcome to Fay Pop TV. I am your host, Travis Smith, and I am joined by Chris Moore with East Hall Recording Studio. What's up, Chris?
How you doing, Travis?
I'm doing well. Thank you for coming on, chatting with me about all types of stuff, lots of things going on. You've got a 20-year anniversary and fundraiser going on, and a few other things we'll dive into.
There's a few things
that's one thing
on,
for
yes,
sure.
yes.
So thank you for coming on. You know, like, this is we've definitely had a lot of conversations on podcasts and stuff before, and unfortunately I do something and end up deleting them all later. But here we are now, kind of under this new umbrella of talking about Fay Pop and stuff like that, and a partnership on this show that we're doing to obviously celebrate 20 years of the studio, but also a fundraiser with some stuff with the Arkansas Department of Transportstion that we'll dive into in a little bit. But I wanted to talk a little bit about yourself, about East Hall's history, some of the bands that are playing this show, and then a little bit about, you know, this studio move and kind of where you see that going and how people can help out, and kind of just dive into all of it. So
Sounds good to me.
you have East Hall Recording. You've been around for 20 years.
20 years.
So kind of describe the studio and where you're at, and kind of lay the landscape of East Hall for a second.
Well, right now the studio is basically a room full of very large, very full boxes. Historically, it's been, you know, I've tended to refer to it as kind of a shack in the woods, because that's definitely kind of the feel that it has. 'Cause, you know, you get up there and you're 4 minutes from the highway, but it feels like you're out in the middle of nowhere. So been there for 20 years. It's not a huge setup. You know, we've depending on what year you go in there, it would be, you know, control room, live room, maybe a vocal booth, maybe the vocal booth is storage, maybe, you know, maybe we do the vocal corner out in the big room. I actually started doing that with COVID, and people dug it. So that's when the old vocal booth became the storage room, and then people just started singing in the big room.
So you have, you know, when people think of recording in today's age, you've got different types of recording. You have a lot of people. You started the studio in a time when people didn't record their own stuff. Like, you kind of had to go to the studio, didn't you?
Pretty close. It was at least they didn't record it well necessarily. You know, I was lucky in that when I started recording, well, not when I very first started, but before I opened the studio, the home recording revolution.
Don't touch that mic, please.
Okay. Mics
only I can touch the
microphones are new to me. I'm not sure what I'm doing, so if you can,
I'm the only one allowed to touch the mics
pointers
around here, Chris.
So I was lucky that I had managed to take advantage of the home recording revolution, but it still wasn't good quality. That didn't come till years later. Whenever I started the studio, it was still really hard to record something good.
Were you recording before you started the studio?
Oh yeah. I started at least probably 15 years before opening the studio. Started on a little 4-track cassette recorder.
Like recording yourself in bands and stuff like that?
Yeah, just recording my own personal projects. You know, I was, at the time, I was going to college, getting a degree in art. And so me and my sculpture and ceramics, that's what I was doing. Me and my art buddies, we would, you know, do weird stuff like do art installations and incorporate speakers into them, and then record stuff on the 4-track onto old loop cassettes, so we could put those in a Walkman behind the piece and just have it play for, you know, 24 hours or whatever. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it was weird stuff.
Were you doing that before, like, you were pumped about recording, or were you kind of recording to do that? know what I mean? Were you thinking of like an art piece or something, and that's the means to the end type scenario?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I was still on the 4-track cassette, so it was not like I wasn't looking at it like, oh, this is going to be, a major recording studio here. But yeah, I would say by the time I got to my senior year of college, and that was actually the year that I decided that, oh, actually I want to do recording. Art is not, what I'm going to be doing for a living. Because, how easy would that be?
Where is this at? Is this
Hendrix,
Hendrix?
Conway. Yeah. Yep. So,
Why'd you move up here?
because there was not a damn thing to do in Conway.
I believe you.
I wasn't crazy about Little Rock. I grew up in Harrison. There was nothing for me there. But I didn't want to move too far away because, I wanted to be close to my family. So I already knew some people in Fayetteville. So this was the place to
Good
go.
spot to land.
It seemed like the best place in within a decent drive of home that had any kind of music scene.
What was the process like getting the studio up and going and, starting a business for the first time, but also, I mean, was there a lot of studios in Fayetteville at the time?
Chris was here. I think he's the only one that's been here longer than me.
Was Listen Lab around?
Listen Lab was here. Dwight was still doing the studio. I still talk to him occasionally. He's doing film, audio stuff up in Bentonville. So yeah. As far as I know, at that point, it was probably just the two of them. I mean, I'm sure there were others, but those are the two that I know of. And there were some, before then that closed up before I ever got over here. Like there was a guy named Bob Moore that had one of the cooler studios, from what I've heard, in the area. But he had closed up by the time I got here. But I've had several people inquire about him, and because we have the same last name. We are not related, but we have the same last name. And I've had a couple guys bring in actually reel-to-reel tapes that were recorded at his place, that they were needing transferred to digital because they hadn't heard them in, a couple of decades. So I'm still, I don't know if trying is the word because I don't really know where to even start, but we'll use it. I'm trying to see if there is somewhere like an actual tape archive from Bob Moore's studio. So if anyone knows, let me know. But I would love to, get a hold of that and start digitizing them and have those available.
Yeah,
for
that'd
people.
be amazing.
In Harrison, where I grew up, there was a music store over there called Ashley Music. And Gus Smith, the father of Matt Smith, Gus Smith just passed away this last year, but Gus was awesome, and Gus ran the studio there at Ashley Music, and in junior high and high school, I always had the dream of going into that studio and recording with Gus, and it never happened because money, and when you're in junior high. You can go buy a couple packs of baseball cards, but paying for studio time is a little more difficult. But I just got contacted a few months ago by Matt, and so the building that Ashley Music was in, they closed down, had to have been like 10 years ago, and the studio had not been functional for years before that, but Matt contacted me and said that there were reels and a tape machine down there. Well, after they shut down, the building became a mattress store, and it was that for better part of a decade probably. And now when I went over there, they were in the process of gutting it and rebuilding it to be some kind of fitness center or something. But the studio was still there. It was still untouched. I mean, the gear was gone, but the studio was still the studio.
Almost like a good infrastructure to plug the gear back in and get it moving again.
I mean, it could be. I mean, I'm sure it's, full of weight benches and stuff now, but yeah, Matt said, there's this stuff over here if you're interested. And so I went over and I got the 16-track tape machine that was in the studio. It does not work, but I have hopes of maybe getting it to work one day. And like 13 big boxes of reel-to-reel tapes, mixed down tapes, the 1/4-inch tapes, and then like the 1-inch 16-track multi-track tapes. I mean, there was stuff going back to the 70s in this.
There's no telling what's around that time. There's no telling what's on there.
I know, it's insane.
A lot of stuff going on around here around that time.
That's another one of my long-term projects is I'd love to get that tape machine going, but I've also got another tape machine that is the same format. And so yeah, when I'm set up in a new studio, I want to start digitizing all that stuff and create the digital archive of Ashley Music Studio.
That's awesome.
So.
I think about there's so many. For me personally, was Thanks for Nothing the first band to record there? Is that the thing?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the only session I had done before you guys came in was a poet came in and did a day of reading some poetry.
I have so much footage of that first recording, but acting so ridiculous that it is embarrassing to watch.
Why I want to see it.
That's why I haven't sent it to you. I'm doing like we're just acting like kids, but to me that's how
you were.
But yeah, we definitely were. I don't think we're even 20 yet. So, but I think about like that's like when a band is in the studio, it's almost like you got to tap back into you being a kid again to like it's kind of what you're doing. It's what it feels like. So then I think whenever. If you're in a comfortable studio, I feel like you're going to be a lot more vulnerable, and then you're going to be more willing to be yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, I think about, if you think about community building within a recording studio and just being a part of things, I think about the times that I had been asked to be a part of something. I met Will Gunselman there by somebody asking for a drummer, like, I got a friend and jump on this.
And
Will
then
Gunselman.
we ended up playing with him for
exactly. Jared Dunn. Hot Shot Karate, which we can dive into in a little bit.
Hot Shot Karate.
So there's it's like part of, a lot of these people, if not all of them, I still talk to, and any of them could have a reunion show like tomorrow. So it's like kind of like for me, when, like your little time in a music scene in DNA, like pretty much almost everybody I've played with or have met was rather through East Hall or we've recorded there and had experiences and stuff like that. So I think that's, you think about a studio being a place where you record, but there was something that, that article for the studio came out today that Monica did with the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Thank you to her for doing that.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that's just today, so you haven't had a chance to dive in it all the way.
I got about halfway through right before I came over.
Amos said something in there that really resonated with me, and I'm probably going to mess up the words exactly, but it was basically along the lines of there's an unspoken, almost like a culture hub, if you will, it represents like part of your music scene in a way. Like a venue does that. Sometimes a person that throws shows, like Roger Barrett with On the Map, he's like a force in our town.
Sometimes a person that just plays. I mean, I've said it before. I think Brian Abel is one of the coolest people on earth.
Totally.
Not just because we're the same age, but yeah, he is one of those individuals
that carries the energy.
Can be a hub,
and sometimes that is carried through physical spaces. Sometimes it's carried through events. A lot of people still talk about the Block Street Party because the amount of genres and artists that were represented and everybody kind of coming together on certain things.
When was the last one of those?
I'm not sure. If I were to guess, it would be somewhere probably around like 2017 or something, 18
Really?
or
Has it
something.
been that long?
I mean, it's definitely been since the pandemic.
Yeah. Oh,
So, I
well,
mean,
yeah.
probably a year or two before that. So, but I mean, that's like a lot of the, like the event might go away, but the energy is still there, but you still got to keep having events to retain that energy. Well, studio is the same way. Like, you got to keep those studios. These are physical places that, you're not just making albums there. There's artists meeting there, meeting each other, becoming bands and stuff like that. And I think that's what's so cool about like this show that we're doing is like, when I hit you up for it, I was like, all right, we talked about it because, I mean, as people could see here, we've got the 10-year that was right behind you, which was, I went and looked at the bands that played that, look at like the Chads, and, like,
Love those guys.
so it's like a lot of people that was kind of a part of the 10-year, and some people you've been recording for probably over 10 years, I would imagine, on this show that's coming up on some of these folks. So like to be able to like be around, but then some folks sticking around and they have new bands coming in and then some new artists that's come through and stuff like that. That's like, what is it like looking back on all these bands that you've recorded? Do you feel like, I mean, not like in a like ego way, like I have a finger on this, but like, do you feel like embraced kind of by the scene and stuff in the way that you have been?
I have never before have I felt as embraced as I do right now. Like the response that we've gotten, from this whole, the whole battle with ARDOT and putting on this show. Yeah, I mean, I've heard from people that I didn't know I'd hear from. And people have said stuff that like, wow, I always try to have a positive impact on people, but you're never really sure how much of an impact you've had. Especially like, because some bands you may, I may work with them for 15 years. Others I may work with on an album or two, and then I don't hear from them again for 10 years. But yeah, to hear how the studio has affected them has been huge. I mean, it's been exactly what I've needed at this point. And and beyond that, the teaching too. Excuse you.
A little chair. Now I know I can do that.
I teach too. I teach recording for NWAC. They come to my studio for the class, but I teach it for NWAC. And yeah, especially the students. After they're gone, there have been a handful that I've worked with after that. Mainly as interns, but yeah, hearing about the effect that the class has had on them. I may get through a semester and at the end thinking, well, that was a disaster. And then I hear from the students that, yeah, it was like, life changing sometimes. So yeah, it blows
People
me
aren't going
away.
to come up to you and be like, just so you know, it's changed my life forever. See you later. Like, they're not going to come and do that sometimes. It's always like something bad happens. They'll like come back and they're like, just so you know, you're a big part of the reason why this is so cool. Describe though kind of what the ARDOT situation is. Kind of, I know that we've got stuff online. We'll send people where to sign up, and I'll show folks that. But kind of talk about, in your words, what this situation is and kind of how it came about.
Well, so in December of 2022, we'd been hearing about the Highway 112 expansion for a while, but the house and the studio, I mean, we're next to the highway, but we're up on a hill. We're pretty far up on a hill.
I don't think you can really see it from the road as well, can you? You can kind of see it, but
at night you can see the lights from the back door of the studio, but other than that, you wouldn't know anything is up there. And I've got neighbors, none close. We don't have any close neighbors, but I've got neighbors that are down the hill from us that when I have talked to them in the past, they had no idea there was even a studio there. because it's hidden
Perfect.
and you can't hear it. So, but yeah, so we knew they were widening the highway. Didn't think it would affect us being up on the hill. But a guy down the hill he told me about a meeting that ARDOT was doing close by about the whole project, and so he said we should all go just to check it out, and I was curious because I didn't think we'd lose our property, but I knew that the construction would probably make it difficult to get on and off of our road, and wanted to see how it was going to affect us and the clients, and so I went to the meeting, and I walk in and they direct me over to this guy sitting in front of a big screen TV. He's got a map on it that he's scrolling around on the map, and so he asked me my address, and he pulls it up, and there on the map there's this little line around our property. He says, "Oh, you're in the construction zone. You're going to be relocated."
Like he tells you, like you find this out at the meeting.
Yeah.
And you went there just to kind of, I mean, you weren't expecting this. You're just expecting something, but just not.
I was just
curious.
House. Like, what's this going to do to traffic patterns? And he told us, of the 3 acres that we have, all but a tenth of an acre is scheduled for construction. So, I mean, we could maybe put a tiny house there on the corner that's left, but well, the thing is, they're not even. The highway isn't even going to go through there, but our dirt road, before it comes out where it normally comes out on 112, they're going to divert it so that it would actually go right through the studio and connect to a roundabout down further along on 112. So yeah, he said they're.
How are they not like sending out information to let you know this beforehand and like doing all they can to let you know that you got to like uproot your life?
I have wondered that myself.
And so you found out at the meeting.
I found out at the meeting that's what was going to happen. And so because I'm sure he had been through this a few times, that night, they immediately called over an actual representative from ARDOT to talk to me, and she was you could kind of tell she'd talked to several people already, but she was good at calming people down. So but yeah, so she's telling me that ARDOT's going to move fast on this, probably going to be moved within 6 months. This is December 22.
Is this at the same meeting?
The same meeting. It's the same meeting. I mean, we're talking a difference of like a minute and a half here. So the ARDOT lady comes and talks to me, and yeah, she says it's going to be fast, 6 months or so. But that, that ARDOT is going to, they're going to treat us right, and it's going to be worth it, that this will be a, chance to improve our situation and all this stuff. And so then that was the last I heard. I went home and told my wife about it, called my brother on the way there, and did not hear a word, not a word, until appraisers came by September of 2024. Yeah.
So this is like dynamite time for you to be figuring out crucial moments of like where you're going to live and like move your business.
Yeah. Well, and plus, it's a recording studio. Anytime you start a record, you're in it for a year. That's not always the case, but 90% of the time that's the case. And so when she was telling me, yeah, you're going to move in 6 months, well, how do you start new records? So I started concentrating on smaller projects because I didn't want to, get waist deep in a record that I couldn't finish.
I remember this because this is around the time you were like, hey, this might be coming, but we don't know yet.
Yeah.
Because then it's like nothing.
We hadn't heard anything. And then the appraisers came by in September of 2024. Didn't hear anything for a while. And then the day after Thanksgiving 2024, lady from Universal Field Services, they're the company that ARDOT hires as the middlemen, which makes sense because, they're out of state. ARDOT probably doesn't want to deal with us directly. So they want that cushion. So she came by day after Thanksgiving and was telling us kind of the same thing. Did say, yes, it's actually going to happen, but was telling us the same thing as far as like, this will be a good thing. We're going to make sure it works out for you. She had all these ways that she could, make this worth our while. Very friendly, very supportive that day.
And this is an ARDOT representative or the third party?
Universal. Yeah. Third party. And so that was the day after Thanksgiving, 2024.
They sent the politician in.
Yeah. Well, temporarily of the politician. And then January 1st of 2025, this year, was the actual 20th anniversary for the studio. Yes, we made it 20 years. January 3rd, she and another person from Universal came over with the actual offer for our property, how much money they were going to give us. So attitudes were very different that day. I have said on numerous occasions that, they were less good cop, bad cop, and more bad cop, bad cop, dealing with all this. And so they give us the offer. It's ridiculous. It's maybe, half of what we need. Because, when we found out 2 years earlier, since then, my wife, Amy, has essentially been memorizing Zillow. So she knows what's out there. Mm-hmm. And so, we saw the number and she was like, this isn't even going to get close to what we need. Turns out they had used one comparable property to justify the number. And they did manage to find a house that was about the same square footage, same number of bedrooms, on a postage stamp size lot, around 3 acres, in a subdivision, in the city limits of Fayetteville, with an HOA.
That is the worst place to put a recording studio, if I must say.
I mean, you're basically setting up a 10 by 10 tent in the front yard, and if you're recording anything louder than an acoustic guitar and someone playing some sand blocks, you're screwed. Cops are going to show up. So, Fayetteville does have noise ordinances, as so many of us know. So yeah, there was no way that was going to come close. And you could kind of tell that the two people from Universal, they knew that it wasn't close. And they were practically saying, hey, okay, we know you're going to negotiate this. It makes me mad just thinking about it. Pause. I'm trying to think of where I'm at.
I'll try not to hit dramatic camera switches at certain times. Like pause.
Oh man. So yeah, they gave us the offer. We realized that this was not something we were going to be able to do on our own. So we hired a lawyer. We worked with the lawyer. We put together a counteroffer. The counteroffer was, and this may be bad negotiating 101. But we counteroffered with what we actually need. The amount of money we would need to get a comparable place where we can set up and do what we're already doing. And they sat on that for about a month, and then they came up teeny tiny little bit. So almost as insulting as the first offer. So
They're like trying to negotiate moving you off your property.
right. Well, and it's not a negotiation anyways. I mean, because we can't fight against eminent domain.
Mm-hmm.
With eminent domain, once it's decided, they'll take your property. You can't stop them. The only thing you can fight over is how much they're going to compensate you for it. But they hold all the cards. They make all the decisions as far as how the negotiation goes. I mean, to begin with, Universal says they negotiate on our behalf with ARDOT. Yeah, they're hired by ARDOT. They get their marching orders from ARDOT. They're not on our side. Because if they fought too hard for us,
Yeah, they'd have to pay you more money.
well, yeah,
Why would they do that?
And then why is ARDOT going to hire them on the next big job? So that's stacked against us. And then, you know, when we counteroffered, we had our lawyer and a great realtor working on it. That, you know, they put together just reams is too much, but they put together several good comps of like, okay, here's a similar property that sold last year. Here's what it sold for. Here's what ARDOT actually paid for this property here and this property here. Put all this stuff together and put that in with a counter offer. And ARDOT is like, nope, doesn't count. Not valid. They decide which of our arguments are valid. The people we're supposedly negotiating with. So, as I've said numerous times, this isn't negotiating, it's begging. So,
What is that? So, I know you got this petition going and stuff, but like, what do they? Whenever something like this happens, they kind of know. They got to know that they're putting people in spots. Obviously,
they have to.
But like, did they offer any? They're not going to give you ways to obviously for them to pay you more money, but were they like, here's like some relief, here's some options, here's some things you can do for negotiations to be able to get more compensations and stuff like that? Or were you able to talk to anybody?
No,
Was, like,
they
lawyer or
were
something?
they were more interested in telling us, okay, so we'll pay X amount of dollars for moving the house. We'll pay X amount of dollars for moving the studio. If it's over X amount of dollars, you got to get two bids for each one. If it's over that amount for any of the bids, then you got to get a third bid, and they'll pay the lowest of all the bids. You know, they're more interested in stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And when we had the meeting where they gave us the offer, I feel like we're jumping around a lot.
No, you're good. You're right on. You're right on.
When we had the meeting where they gave us the offer, we were immediately asking about, okay, how do we negotiate this? And so the Universal people were basically telling us that, well, you can negotiate this number, but if this number comes up, then it's gonna come out of this one over here, so you're not really going to be any better off. And they try to tell us that if we do that, there's going to be some kind of tax ramifications for it too. Yeah, like this over here is non-taxed, implying that this one is taxed, which is not the case. So they veiled threats and friendly intimidation, basically.
It's just business as usual, kind of, for them.
Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, that's why they hire people like Universal to do it, you know, because I don't know if they stumbled into doing it as effectively as they did or if they do it by design, but either way, they're pretty good at screwing people over.
So what is like, if there's any, and I've heard you say that like, is it true that there's like, we got the petition going, but it's really hard to kind of get them to offer more? Is that true?
Oh yeah, they don't have to. They don't have to. I mean, they can. We could come in with a counteroffer of $3 over what they're offering, and they could just say no. The only potential relief that we have, and I have a feeling this is where it will end up, is to go in front of a jury, an actual jury, not, ARDOT's judge and jury.
Yeah.
Like if we can't come to an agreement, then it's my understanding, and if I'm wrong, I'll find out. But but it's my understanding that if we don't come to an agreement, then they will eventually file suit. At which point all this goes in front of a jury of our peers.
That's that might be good. You might need another opinion that's not outside of theirs. That's kind of what you need, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly what we need.
It's kind of what we're doing is raising awareness.
Yeah,
that's what we're doing.
We need opinions that they don't have complete control over, because there's no way we're going to get a fair shake.
That's why, so let's just talk about that. The form right now on your website you have where you can sign up for the email newsletter to keep up with updates and stuff like that.
Although I will say the better option at this point, and I need to update this on the website. The better option is I have started a Substack.
Okay.
So you can go to the Substack and actually, I post long form on there about all this.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Okay.
So because we're trying to raise awareness. We are going to have, if we're going to have any leverage at all in negotiating with ARDOT, then we have to make it abundantly clear to